So we had another victory last week, and the Abbott government suffered another humiliating defeat. The deregulation of university fees was voted down once again in the Senate, even after Minister Pyne's desperate attempts to rule the independent senators by chopping and changing this deeply unpopular legislation. He's still lost. But I don't think we can give too much credit to those vacillating independent senators. I think we can claim this victory as our own. The thousands of people that came out into the streets in the first half of last year, the National Days of Action for Education, March in March, the workers that rallied with their unions in Melbourne last year and in Sydney this year, and the tireless campaigning of students around the country. It was us that sent the message loud and clear to Parliament that we would not accept a piece of legislation that single-handedly ruined any semblance of an equitable university system in this country. So I think we can celebrate this as a definitive nail in the coffin of this vicious government. But now is not the time to stop fighting. Pyne's already searching around for new ways to cut funding, raise fees, such as his determination to leave his legacy in the great age of austerity. All sorts of insidious alternatives are already on the table. We still face the prospect of a rise in fees by having the caps of fees raised and public subsidies cut. Whatever they have in store, we have to be ready to fight them on it. Because deregulation was just one part of a whole program of austerity. The same program that continues to destroy Aboriginal communities, legal services, disability support services, homelessness services, and so much more, and they haven't finished yet. I think it's important actually to think about what kind of vision of society fee deregulation actually represents on the part of the Liberal government and neoliberal parties all around the world. It's a user-pays model of society, where the right to higher education, no matter who you are or how much money your parents earn, doesn't exist. The right to see the doctor without having to calculate whether or not you can afford it does not exist. In their minds, these things are not social goods, not seen as necessary to or benefiting society in general, but a commodity to be bought and sold like anything else, as if being healthy and educated was some sort of lifestyle choice, as Abbott's so fond of saying. Fee deregulation was sold to us as though we were some sort of consumers choosing to get a university degree. Never mind the fact that by 2020, it's likely that around 40% of jobs will require at least an undergraduate degree. And they say that if we don't want to pay $100,000 for a degree, then we can simply choose something else, like maybe going to TAFE. But then fees for TAFE are going to be doubling sometime soon as well. And yet at the end of our degrees, it's those very skills and education that go into running this society and making profits for the economy and for big business. Go figure. And while the HEC system has meant that individual students have been paying a higher and higher portion of fees over the last 3 decades, corporate tax has continued to fall. So while we struggle to pay back debts, the likes of Gina Reinhardt are absolutely rolling in it. As it is, I believe that university fees are already prohibitively high. Any increases in fees will further entrench the inequality that marks this system already. Poor students are still put off by high fees. Indigenous students continue to be at a massive disadvantage in our universities, and it already takes women years longer to pay back, on average, to pay back their loans than it does for men. Any raises in fees will see this gender gap widen, and no amount of tokenistic new scholarships will bridge these growing divides. So it's not just deregulation that I think we need to fight. It's this whole way of seeing the world and treating people like consumers rather than people. And I think the defeat of this legislation is a great step in the right direction. The fact that around 75% of Australians have been against this legislation from the get-go represents that most people in this society reject that vision of society. But we also can't underestimate just how determined the government and their Vice-Chancellor buddies are. We need to be ready for what some university VCs will now do. Those who so energetically fought for deregulation and to continue to corporatise our universities while telling us it was good for us. If they think they can now turn around and say that because they can't extract more money out of students, they have to make cuts within their own institutions to courses and staff, claiming as they always do that their hands are tied and there's not enough money, then we have to be ready to stand up and say no. If this happens, students will have to fight alongside staff to defend their jobs and conditions, as we have done so many times in the past, be they academics, library staff, administration staff, or cleaning staff. And we have to say that we will not have our courses or services cut while the VCs continue to pay themselves million-dollar salaries, build new swimming pools and build new business centres. We will remind this government that we know there is enough money in this country to fund public education, and the government must provide it. We know the money is there because it's being flushed around all over the place. We've seen the billions of dollars that keep being poured into the mining sector that's killing our planet, the billions of dollars spent locking up refugees in Nauru and Manus Island, and sending troops and bombs to the Middle East yet again. We know the money is there. But we cannot rely on the independent senators this time around. They've already said they might agree to fee hikes, and we cannot let that happen. It has to be us, students and workers, who fight this. So far we've seen the government give up on deregulation and the Medicare co-payment because they know how much everyone hates them. We made that damn clear last year when we took to the streets. So imagine what we could do if we ramped it up this year, Greek style. We could wipe the floor with this government if we organised ourselves to do it. I think we need more action like we saw on March the 4th this year when workers came out to reject the tax on workers and wages. So when this government, or the next one, comes back to us with cuts or fee hikes, I hope to see not only students and university staff, but nurses, construction workers, teachers, firefighters out on the streets supporting us and demanding a fairer education system for everyone, not just the Francis Abbotts of this world. You'll have your first chance to do that next week. On Wednesday the 25th, there will be another National Day of Action for Education, and I encourage you all to come along. And if you're a student, I encourage you to get involved in your Education Action group on campus. And there is a block of students here today with an impressive sized banner just over there. That's the New South Wales Education Action Network. I encourage you to get involved if you're a student. And together we can walk today, I think, to celebrate the crushing of deregulation, and together we can remind the government, this one and the next one, that they won't get away with any cuts, that we refuse to be squeezed for more money, and that we reject their whole austerity agenda, and we will fight for something better.
That was wonderful. Caitlin Doyle, Marwick, everyone.